Our speaker tonight that we have, I have no idea who he is. I literally just met him a week ago there at Polishing the Pulpit. We were standing there talking with Mark Teskey there at Good News Today, and he introduced me to Daniel Gaines. Daniel is from Pensacola, but he is now serving as the director of the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching in Tanzania, Africa. And so whenever two missionaries meet each other, we have an instant connection, kind of like soldiers that have gone off to war. And so we know a lot of people and talked about several things. And he said, well, you know, I'm going to be in Pensacola on Sunday speaking over at Scenic Hills, giving a presentation. What's the chances that I could come to Margaret Street Sunday night? And so I called up the elders, and they said, sure, that sounds good. And so Daniel is here with us. He is a graduate of the Freed-Hardeman University, graduated in 2000, and then got his master's degree from there in 2003. He's been serving with Tanzania missions there since 2013, really before that, but started getting more involved in 2013, became the director in 2019. He's here with his wife, Tiffany, and their children, Josiah, Levi, and Gracie. And then they also have a daughter, Abby, who is at Freed-Hardeman right now. So, Daniel, we're so glad to have you here. Please come speak to us.
Well, thank you so much for graciously allowing me to invite myself to come and speak to you tonight. Thank you for working that out. I'm impressed with this congregation, with your reputation. I've known of Margaret Street for quite a long time. Growing up in Pensacola, my dad was the preacher at Leonard Street back then. And meeting Troy, I really have enjoyed getting to know him a little bit. I'm impressed with him. I'm impressed with the reputation that you have as a congregation that has a love for missions. And I've heard that when you get involved in supporting missions, you like to really get involved with the work. And I think that speaks wonderfully for this congregation. So I want to tell you about the work that is taking place in Tanzania. I think it's just a wonderful work. I'm very proud to play a small part in it. I like to show you a picture of my family. Of course, most of my family is here with me, but I start with this so that you know that as I stand before you, these are the people standing behind me, that I could not do any of what I do without their love and support, and they enable that very much. I also like to begin by emphasizing the enormity of the task that is at hand, because a lot of people have no concept of how big Africa is. And so one way I found to illustrate that is by drive time. That's sort of how I tend to think about distance, is how long does it take me to drive to that place. Well, if you were to drive diagonally across this great continent of ours, starting Miami, Florida, and going all the way up to North Pole, Alaska, it would take you some 77 hours to drive those 4,835 miles, according to Google Maps. I have not personally verified this through my own experience, but that's quite a drive. Similarly, if you were to drive up the continent of Africa, starting in Cape Town, South Africa, and driving up to Cairo, Egypt, if you take the shortcut, it will take you 159 hours, more than twice as much windshield time to drive that 276 miles that trip is. It's a huge, huge place. Another way to illustrate it is, now, to avoid confusion, more than geographically challenged, these are not the actual countries on the continent of Africa. But these are some more familiar countries showing you how they would fit on the landmass that is Africa. I occasionally meet individuals that are under the impression that Africa is a country. Maybe that's because of how we sometimes tend to talk of it in a monolithic sense, as if it were one country. It's a continent, a huge area. There are 54 countries that are a part of it. So you could place the United States and China and India and most of Europe and Japan on the landmass that is Africa. It's a vast, vast area. And here specifically is Tanzania. It's located on the east coast of Africa, below the equator. This is the home of some of the things that I consider to be quintessentially African. This is where the Serengeti is. This is where Mount Kilimanjaro is, the tallest freestanding mountain in the world, highest point in Africa. It's where Lake Tanganyika is, which is the deepest lake in Africa, second deepest freshwater lake in the world. So Tanzania is home of the highest and lowest points in Africa, which is appropriate because mission work is full of highs and lows. It also is bordered by Lake Victoria, which is the largest lake in Africa by a surface area. And so it's a beautiful place. People come there from all around. Anybody ever seen The Lion King? You seen The Lion King? That was filmed there. Well, it could have been if it were actually filmed. Of course, it's animated, but that's what the landscape looks like. That is Tanzania. So come and visit, and we'll take you on a safari one day and make you spend the rest of the time evangelizing. We'll make you work for it hard, but we'd love to have you. Here's another scale picture. This is the nation of Tanzania superimposed over the southeastern United States, so you get a sense for the size of it. Well, what we're really, though, concerned about are the people. Right now in Africa, for every one person that dies, there are 4 people being born. Now, you don't have to be a mathematician. You can be as dumb as I am and understand that is an exploding population. And the reasons for that are the birth rate has always been very high there, and it continues to be high. But the mortality rate has also always been very high. Well, modern medicine is making inroads and beginning to proliferate in Africa, and people are living longer there. And so as a result of that, the population is booming. And so the people that study these things tell us to expect that by the end of this century, Tanzania will be the 8th most populous nation in the whole world, and that its largest city of Dar es Salaam will be the 3rd most populous city in the entire world. Now, for me, that's staggering. And it lets us know we're in a real sweet spot. We're in a place where people are very receptive to the gospel, and the population is booming, so there's a great chance that every single person that's converted, maybe will become the patriarch or matriarch of a new Christian family of multiple generations. And so there's an urgency in the work and trying to get ahead of this curve as much as we possibly can. So with that in mind, Tanzania Missions has 4 key components to it. And I want to talk to you about how we're addressing each of those components. And I think you'll see as we go through that these really are things that need to be of concern anywhere in the world. They're part of what the church is about. And one of those areas is preacher training. If the church is going to survive and thrive long term in any area, any region, there has to be some plan in place for training the local men to be evangelists, for training those preachers. Missionaries can only do so much. And the job of a missionary is intended to be temporary. You're trying to work yourself out of a job. You want the local people taking on leadership and growing in these areas. That's what you're trying to do. And so there needs to be a plan for preacher training. So for us, enter the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching. Andrew Connolly is the gentleman in the top corner. He was the missions mentor to the gentleman in the bottom corner. That's Cy Stafford, and Cy Stafford in turn was my missions mentor. He's the one that recruited me into the work in Tanzania, was somewhere between a father and a friend to me, loved him dearly. And then they've both gone on to receive their eternal rewards at this point. But they established the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching in northern Tanzania. And it's been a tremendous success. We have had students come to us and be trained and go back to evangelize in their own areas and plant churches, coming to us, of course, from all over Tanzania, but not only that, also our neighbors to the north, Kenya, also Uganda and Malawi, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, South Sudan, Ethiopia. We've even had a guy come as far away as Nigeria, which is across the continent. That's not close. So this one mission point is impacting all of East Africa. And now there are several other schools of preaching that have popped up in different points in East Africa, and most of them are being operated by our graduates. So we're really excited about that. It's kind of this pyramid of good. And that's one of the things that I love about this mission model. We'll never know this side of heaven all the good that is done by the guys we train and the guys that they train and the guys that they train. And it's... I just love the model. I'm excited to be a part of that, a small part of that. It's exciting to think about. So it's a 2-year program. It is affiliated with Bear Valley Bible Institute International. They provide our accreditation. We work with them. We have 2 languages going on at any one time. So we alternate. 1 year we take in an English-speaking class. The next year we take in a Swahili-speaking class. So this past year we graduated our English speakers. We graduated 12 English speakers and 22 Swahili speakers advanced to their senior year. And our freshman class this year, I think, is 9 English speakers. And so altogether we have around 30 people that are students at the school right now. And that's fairly typical for us at any given time. Usually we'll have between 8 and 15 English students and between 20 and 30 Swahili students, which for a school of preaching is a pretty good size school of preaching. We're proud of that and have been doing that for quite some time. As a part of this, I'm going the wrong way. I told you it was dummy proof, and then I went the wrong way. This is Cy Stafford. Again, I told you he was my mentor. He's the one that got us involved in the work. In 2017, he succumbed to his a battle with cancer, and he had asked me to take over the work at some point after he was gone. And so we decided in 2019 that we needed to re-engage with it. And so that's when we got back into taking the directing role of the work. And as a part of it, I believe the work in Arusha has grown to the point to where we've been training local leadership for a significant amount of time. Matter of fact, I was the last American on-the-ground director of the School of Preaching there. And part of my task was I trained a couple of these guys, Charles and Ahima Dewey, to take my place. And so now on the ground, as directors of the School of Preaching there are Tanzanians that are filling that role. We're really proud of that. And so I'm the coordinator, I'm the liaison between Bear Valley and them, and I still help. I'm still in constant communication with them, but that local directing, they're doing that. And we're, again, really, really proud of that. And so what they need from me, more than me being there every day, is they need funding for what's going on and all the good works they're doing. So how I serve them, one of the many ways I serve them is by helping to raise funds for support of the school and the other aspects of the work that we'll be talking about tonight. But so as I stand here, I'm standing here on their behalf, because these guys can't be here tonight to tell you how important the work is, and they can't be here tonight to thank you for being interested in the work, and they can't be here to thank people that are involved. And so I represent them as they are on the ground, eyes, ears, and hands, working closely together with me. All right, so the other area of the work, second area, is in personal evangelism. That's really what it's ultimately all about, right? Is personal evangelism. After this life, there are only 2 things that you could have done that will matter 500 years from now, 1,000 years from now, when everybody has forgotten your name. 2 things will matter. Did you make it to heaven? And did you help anybody else get there? That's it. Nothing else will matter at that point in time. So that's what personal evangelism is about. It's trying to increase the population of heaven, and we want to make heaven crowded, right? That's what we want. So evangelism there is relatively easy. I like to tell this story about how evangelism worked, how it worked in the Lakes region of Africa, how the church was planted there and proliferated there, because I think you'll see as we go through this, different aspects of the Lord's body working together to cause the growth of the whole. All right, so here the story begins with a man named Pascal. I don't have a picture of Pascal, but Pascal moved into this area. Pascal was not a terribly mature Christian. He needed his doctrine refined, honestly, on several points. However, he did know the plan of salvation and knew how the church was supposed to worship. And he had some tracts. And so he wanted to share what he knew. And so that's what he did. He had tracts, and he shared with his new neighbors when he moved into this little mountain village, and he shared with this man, Bahati, and his family. They read those tracts. They were baptized from their sins. They began to worship by the New Testament pattern. And the church in this region began right under that fig tree that you see. That's where it started. Since then, we've been able to build them a building. This was a major undertaking. You don't know. It was hard for us to get this done because where this congregation was located is up on a mountain region that you can't drive to. So we were having to get donkey-drawn carts, hauling concrete up there and building materials to get this building for them. They were so grateful. First Sunday it was open, they were already bursting at the seams and were like, Brother Daniel, can we expand the building? Wonderful, wonderful problem. So the team in Arusha heard about this church growing, and we sent a team out there to help them with evangelism that included a missionary, included a couple of local evangelists, included a preaching student by the name of Yusuf. That's Yusuf up in the corner. And so Yusuf goes there. They're doing evangelism. Some people are converted from a nearby city of Ushurumbo. This is the Ushurumbo church building now. I was there doing a seminar with them. So after graduation, Yusuf goes to work with that congregation and helps them to continue to grow, and he helps to refine Pascal a little bit, and the church is continuing to go. Well, as a result of their evangelism, there's another congregation at nearby village of Lulambella that is established, and we're able to help them with some facilities, and they're continuing to grow. And then another congregation was established in the nearby village of Casabigio, all coming from the same point. The church at Casabigio, now we've been able to help them drill a water well, and it provides water for the whole village, and everybody comes and they get their water and they get their living water at the same time, and it's become a great evangelistic outreach for that community. And so it's continuing to grow. Still in the area, the headmaster of the Mbambilla Primary School was converted, and he allowed us to have a gospel meeting in his school building that's pictured up there, with the result that during that gospel meeting there were 45 people that were baptized in this little pit. Now, not all at one time. It's a small pit. They took turns. But the church was started and was growing. The first lady was this lady. Her name is Rebecca, first Christian in that area. And the church grew in that little schoolhouse to over 200 people. Until the government stepped in and said, you can't be running a school out of our building. You can't be running a church out of our building. You've got to get out. So for a while they met in this building until it became too weather damaged to be safe. Then they eventually wound up in the backyard of this family, and the numbers were dwindling without a good place, a safe, dependable place to worship. And so we were able finally to help them with a permanent facility, and the church is picking back up and growing steadily there again. These are the tracts that we use. They're so useful over there. Each tract is read by several people typically before it's discarded, but sometimes it takes longer than others for a seed to germinate. One time, a guy got one of those tracts and he stuck it in his Bible. Do you ever just stick stuff in your Bible? Any of your Bibles have a bunch of pages in it? Yeah. Now be careful about that. The Bible says not to add to or take away from. That's not what that's talking about. You're fine. I do the same thing. Anyway, he stuck that tract in his Bible, and it remained there peacefully undisturbed for about 8 years. And then one day he opened up his Bible, and for some reason, I don't know why, that day he read the tract, but he did. He was convicted by it. He sought more information from the contact information on the back, and he went through some studies. He was converted, became a New Testament Christian, came to the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching, became a preacher, spent the rest of his life preaching the gospel. Amen. You just never know. You never know. You just keep putting the seed out there, and you let God give the increase. So Baptisms are going to take place in all types of different environments. The studies are easy to get. Just some statistics for last year. Affiliated with the work, there were 544 baptisms. There were 361 restorations last year. 6 new congregations planted and 2 wayward congregations were restored to the truth. There's great things that are taking place. And that baptism, one of those is taking place in Lake Victoria. One of them is just in a creek. One of them's in a field where they furrowed out a little trench and laid a tarp in there so it would hold some water, made a makeshift baptistry, doing whatever they need to do. That reminds me, one time I was studying with a fellow. And you get all kinds of questions. One question I got was, he said, now if I go down to the river to be baptized and I'm eaten by a crocodile, what's going to happen? I mean, Troy, how many times do you have to answer that around here, right? Yeah. You get a few questions that are different. This was at the Indemar REA congregation. I studied with this guy and this girl. There were 2 of them. They were ready to be baptized. I said, where are we baptizing people around here? So we get in the car, and I had to drive them an hour before we parked the car and went on foot from there to finally find this disgusting little mud hole. And when I saw this, literally my heart sank. I thought, they're going to back out. They're not going to want to get in this. I probably would back out and not get in this. This looks terrible. It's not suitable for humans to get in. But here they go. They got right down in there and they were baptized, and they're all the better for it. And I came back and set to work fundraising for a baptistry. That's not the baptistry, but fundraising for baptistry that now is right there at their facility, so much more convenient, and they are wearing it out. That congregation is so evangelistic. I'm proud of them. Here's some people that were baptized at a campaign we had at the Lerai congregation, and I love to talk about and think about the providence of God. This doesn't have a pointer on it, does it? No. Well, you'll notice that there are 3 faces in that group that maybe look a little bit different than a lot of the group pictures that we have. That's because the lady on the end over here, her teenage son or teenage daughter, they're spread out a little bit. Well, they're not Africans. They're Mexicans. I mean, how cliche is it, right? You get this guy from Kentucky and he goes over to Africa, and in the bush he baptizes a Mexican family. You just hear about it all the time. Well, she had married she spoke beautiful English and lived in Maryland for a while. It was a great relief for me to be able to conduct a Bible study in English. It was wonderful. And she'd married a Tanzanian man and was living there with her children. We studied together. They were baptized. They're still faithful Christians now. And I completely chalk that up to God's providence. You just don't know when you're going to run into people. The third area of the work is in providing benevolence. One of the ways that our faith is demonstrated is in ways that we try to seek to alleviate the sufferings of others. And there in Tanzania, you see plenty of suffering. There are a lot of impoverished people. I don't want to give the impression that everybody's impoverished. They're not, but there are a lot of impoverished people. The average person is minimum wage. The average worker for unskilled labor, they're cleaning the house, they're digging a ditch, something like that, is about $5 a day. $5 a day. And so labor is very cheap. A lot of people are living very hard as a result of that. So one of the things that we're able to do is we have a program that we help ladies that have escaped from sex trafficking, and we help to retrain them in how to sew and learn a trade that can help provide for themselves in a different way. And there's a shop that's set up where they can sell the fruits of their labor there and help them to get reestablished on a different path. And then there are a lot of things like that we're able to do. Life is hard for a lot of people. Can you guess what this lady does, what her job is? You may have some different ideas. Obviously, she's in a rock band. She plays rock music all day. She's making gravel. She works in a quarry. She's making gravel by hand. What a hard way to live. And this is the most popular child's toy we see over there. Christmas is just around the corner. You're going to want to put this on your Christmas list, kids. Parents, grandparents, kids are going to love it. It's just a bucket lid nailed to a stick. They're going to roll that on the ground. They think that's really cool. but that's the most common child's toy that we see over there. And sometimes groups are good about incorporating something benevolent in what they do. One year, the group from Hoover, Alabama, gave out mosquito nets to all the Christians, the Christian families in the area. That was a great way that they helped. The fourth area of the work is in edifying the church. We're not just there to baptize people. We want to see the church grow and mature and develop in a lot of different ways. And so we do everything we can from various angles and standpoints to help the church mature and to equip them in different ways. One area we do that is with these Bible schools. We have three. There's Kilimanjaro Bible School, the Arusha Bible School, and the Kisongo Bible School. And these are different from the School of Preaching. The Andrew Collins School of Preaching is for faithful Christians that want to be preachers. The Bible schools are for anybody. All right, so they're a point for evangelism. They're great for new converts, all that sort of thing. So recently, a recent success for the Kilimanjaro Bible School is they had two guys come through there that were preachers at an area denomination. And they came to learn that what they had been teaching was not the truth, and they needed to change. And so they took what they were being taught at the Kilimanjaro Bible School. They converted themselves. They went back to their congregation, been teaching them there, been inviting our people to teach there, and now that whole congregation is the Church of Christ. It's been converted. And so the church there is supporting one another and helping it to grow. That's one of the things we really are looking for. And so a big point of emphasis for us in the coming year is we're wanting to expand and revitalize these Bible schools a little bit, try to do some things more effective, even more effective in the future than we have in the past. Part of what needs to be done is there's a lot of deferred maintenance that these schools are experiencing, and we need to increase our budget next year for the Bible schools. And so keep that in the back of your mind. That's something that is very much on my mind. Another thing, we try to do seminars for a lot of different people. This past year, we had the opportunity to teach classes at Freed-Hardeman University. I served as the missionary in residence at Freed-Hardeman. Every year they bring a different missionary in for the year to teach about missions, to emphasize missions on campus, and teach some other courses as well. So I taught on missions, I taught on personal evangelism, I taught Acts of the Apostles and Life of Christ. Tiffany also got to teach as well. She taught teaching the Bible to children. She taught lesson preparation and delivery for women. She taught a Christian woman. So she taught some ladies' Bible classes as well. And so teaching Bible to children is just natural. It's in her wheelhouse. She's been teaching that for a long time. She teaches that in Tanzania all the time, doing these seminars at different congregations, helping to equip them. She's a great asset to the work in that regard. This picture, this is one of my very favorite pictures, and I have to slow down and talk about it for a second. It is Gracie. So this congregation, here's the setting, all right? Here's looking out from that same picture into the yard. We're at this congregation to do a children's seminar, and there's no road to this congregation. I'm driving down the road, and my guide says, okay, turn here. I said, where? There's not a road. He says, I know. Okay, so we turn off going across the field. We're dodging. They've got these acacia bushes, and they've got thorns that, no joke, are this long. Great for your tires, right? Really bad for your tires. Anyway, so we're trying to dodge those. We come to a creek bed. There's no crossing. We're just trying to find our way that we can get a truck through there. And eventually we pop out in this clearing, and there's this little church building there. And I'm thinking, how did this church building even get here? And who is coming to this church building? We didn't pass a lot of houses on the way. Are we going to be wasting our time? Who's even here? We're there for 30 minutes or an hour. 150 people show up out of the bush. They're there. Kids, women, there are men. I'm meeting with the men out under the shade tree in the front yard, and we're studying the Bible together as the women and children are inside. And so going back inside, here's what's taking place. Let me start in the background. In the background is one of my sons, Josiah, and he's leading children's Bible class songs in Swahili to the kids that are there. And in the foreground, you have my Chinese-born daughter, Gracie. And she's playing with the earring of this Maasai Bibi, this Maasai grandmother, that they had been playing together all morning. They developed a great rapport. She'd been very patient with Gracie. And so all these different languages, Gracie born with Chinese, she's deaf in one ear, she speaks some sign language, so you got that. The Maasai lady speaks Maasai, Josiah speaks English, he's leading songs in Swahili. So there are all these different languages, all these different backgrounds, born on 3 different continents, different races, all in the bush of Africa, in a place where there's not a road to this spot. How in the world did this picture take place? It has no business existing, right? But to me, brethren, this is a glimpse into heaven. This is what heaven's going to be. We're going to be in heaven with people that we have nothing at all in common with except the blood of Christ. People from different time periods in history that we'd have no means of communication. No cultural similarities, no language similarities, different races, we're going to look different, we're going to talk different, all these different things, but we are together because of the love of Christ, the blood of Christ has cleansed us of our sins, and this is what heaven looks like, and this is what mission work is about, is creating scenes like this after this life, in my opinion. I love it, if you can't tell. We also, in trying to strengthen the churches, we have the Tanzania Leadership Conference. We were polishing the pulpit last week. This is our version of polishing the pulpit. We host at the Andrew Connolly School of Preaching. Church leaders and members will come from all over East Africa and assemble there at the school to take part in that. I'll be going to that here in a couple of weeks at the beginning of October for that, and to teach a short course at the School of Preaching. Speaking of short courses, I'm trying to talk Troy into coming and teaching some short courses for me. So just y'all pray for him and pressure him. He needs to do that. Support him if he wants to do that. That would be great. We also have established the Cy Stafford School of Leadership. We identify one of the big hurdles that we have is trying to get these congregations to mature to the point to where they have elders. And a big problem in getting biblical elders is overcoming cultural leadership styles and learning biblical leadership styles. And so we have the School of Preaching that's there, among other reasons, to help train men to better do the role of and work of being an elder. That's something that really I wish we did more in America. A lot of times elders are just kind of thrown into the office without much preparation and training. It's just kind of figured out, guys, do the best you can. Where we send preachers to these training schools and to get degrees and all that stuff, and there's not as much help for elders to figure out how to do this, such a vital, important role. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do is to help with that. We also host a couple of camps there at the School of Preaching. Tanzania Christian Camp, which is modeled after American Bible camps. Kids will come and they do the same kinds of things they do in American Bible camps, but it's at the School of Preaching. We also have Future Preacher Training Camp, which focuses more on training kids on how to conduct Bible studies, how to lead singing, how to prepare lessons, how to do those sorts of leadership things. So, we're trying to use the facilities in as many ways to help strengthen the brotherhood as we can. Also, I used to take pictures and show pictures of me speaking at different audiences over there. And I got to thinking that was silly. Because, one, I didn't like it was putting the focus on me, and two, it seems silly to show you a picture of me in front of an audience when you're looking at me in front of an audience. Like, you know what that looks like, right? So you don't need that. So what I started doing was taking pictures of the congregation from my viewpoint so that I can show you your brothers and sisters there. So you can see some of these congregations and see their environments and see their faces and see these brethren that you hope to see again in heaven. And so that's a part of this. And as we go through there, let me mention that we were able, as we go through that, there are 71 congregations that we're associated with directly with the mission. And we've been able to help in some regard. So there's a lot of work that is going on. This past year, we were able to build new buildings for the congregations at Dodoma Miyuji, at Imlamagigo, at Lugeye, at Marilani. We helped with improvements and several others, like the baptistry that I mentioned earlier. We were able to host seminars at the School of Preaching with Dr. Jim Gardner and Dr. Neil Ritchie on Christians and mental health. And so there are a lot of ways that we're doing that as well. So here are some of the congregations. The congregation up top is a congregation in Matunda, Kenya. The congregation on the bottom is close to the Tanzania-Kenya border. They were having a hard time, and the reason they're all spread out like that is that's how they dealt with COVID. Congregation on the left side there is out in the bush. When we went there to do the seminar for them, I did not see pavement all day that day. From the morning we left the guest house, when we got back that night, it was dirt the whole way. It was a very moving and stirring day. The congregation over there on the right, green, lush, up on the mountain, on the side of Mount Meru. We had so many people there that we couldn't meet inside the building, so we're meeting outside. The congregation up top there is in Dar es Salaam. This is one of only maybe 4 congregations in the whole country that I'm aware of that has elders. So we're really excited to get to see them. I love the huge children's section on the front there. Can you see that? And then here's a congregation on the very southern border of Tanzania, and a new church plant there on the bottom. We're concerned always about sustainability. We have solar power at the school that has taken a huge part of our budget off and helped us a lot. We have farming there at the school that helps with the food needs at the school, but also is training for the students. As a part of what they have to do, they have to work in the farm. They get a grade for it. Like that's part of their training. They have to work because they're learning raised bed drip irrigation and techniques to help feed them. Some of them will have the benefit of outside support, but most will not have outside support as they're doing the work of the Lord. And so they need to learn ways to feed their families as they are doing evangelism. And also water. We finally have been able to get a well at the school. It's not on site. We had to buy a spot a mile away that had water. We drilled a well there, we've run a water line, and we are benefiting from that at the school now, and also the village is benefiting. We open it up to the community 2 days a week. People can come and fill up their water containers and get as much as they like to help the community as well. Also, thinking about sustainability, one of the things that we launched just this year, got to thinking about what's going to happen when I'm not able to raise funds anymore. Is there always going to have to be somebody doing what I'm doing? And I would like for that not to be the case. What do schools do in America to support themselves? Schools in America have a charge tuition. Well, we don't charge tuition. We give an absolutely free education. Schools in America get help from the government. The Tanzania government's not helping us. Schools in America do get support sometimes from donors. That's how we're living, is on support. But schools in America also have endowment funds that undergird their financial stability. And so that's one thing I'm trying to do for the work in Tanzania, for the school of preaching specifically, not for all of the work, but I would really love for, by the time I'm finished with this for one reason or another, to leave the work with an endowment that would undergird the daily operations of the school of preaching. And so we're asking people to consider their estates, including that possibly in their estates, maybe lump sums. See, the way that works is the one-time gift is never touched. That's invested, and it provides perpetual income and support. So, for example, a one-time $10,000 gift to the endowment fund should provide at least $40 a month forever for the work, for the school. So you see, you do that. I'm looking for 192 people who will either make $10,000 donations or raise $10,000 to completely fund that endowment. So that's one of the things that I'm looking for. And that, talk about leaving a legacy. Put that in your estate. That says to your descendants, that says to everybody who knows that comes after you, they thought world evangelism was important. That was something, a legacy, a gift they wanted to leave. So what is the mission in Tanzania? It's edification, it's benevolence, it's evangelism, it's preacher training. This is what the church is concerned about everywhere, right? This is part of what the church does here in America. It's what it needs to do everywhere. So that's what the mission is. It's fairly broad, it's comprehensive, and involved in a lot of aspects. These are some of the reasons I love being a part of this work so much. So needs and opportunities, the number one need we have is prayers. Number one. I appreciate your announcement about this 24 hours of prayer. That's wonderful. I like that a lot. I like that you're a congregation that believes in prayer. Prayer matters. It's important. I want to ask you to pray for this work. Even if you can't financially support it all, prayer is even more important. If you told me, hey, we'll write you a big check or we'll pray for you, which do you want? Pray for me. All right? I want the prayers. Pray for this work. Pray for other mission works that you support. Pray for other mission works you don't support but you have heard of. Pray for areas you think might need mission work. Make missions a part of your prayer. Labor regularly on behalf of missions in your prayers. That matters and it's important. We do need financial contributions, whether it be monthly or one time. I mentioned that we need to increase our budget next year, and we're already running at a deficit this year. My goal is by January to have raised $1,000 a month more than what we had this month. So that's one thing I'm asking for. I don't know what your situation is. If you find that you can be monthly contributors and can contribute toward that goal, that would be great. If you can make one-time donations, that would be great. If you just pray, that's great as well. Appreciate the involvement in any regard. And also referrals. You have friends, family members, your barber, whoever that is in a leadership position at another congregation. Tell them, hey, Sunday we heard from this work in Tanzania. It sounded really good. Maybe you guys would also be interested in hearing it and form a connection. And you never know what might happen from that. That would be very helpful as well. So here's ultimately what I'm offering. I think about the Macedonian Christians in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, how they were impoverished. Paul wasn't really expecting contributions from them, but they begged him for the favor of participation. Let us support, let us contribute to the work of the Lord. Because that's who they were. They'd first given themselves to the Lord. And I like to tell a story of my son Levi. He's the one in the picture there. And this was Levi's idea 100%. I know it may be difficult for you to believe that I didn't put this idea in his head other than just by example. And he's heard me talking about missions for quite a while. But kids get a little money here and there, Tooth Fairy or birthdays or whatever. And so what he has done, what he's purposed in his heart, and he has done for the last several years, is through the course of the year, he sets aside $20. And every January, he presents $20 to the Tanzania work. And I love the heart. That's a tremendous gift in my eyes. Because I know he doesn't have very much money. He doesn't get that many opportunities, but he puts it aside. He wants the favor of participation in something great that the Lord is doing. And so I'm not begging for money. I'm offering you the opportunity to be a part of something great that God's doing. And that's why I'm here. And I appreciate so much that opportunity. I love this image. The church and the missionary and the lost, it all works together. That's a part of the chain of events. You have to have the goers, but the goers can't go without senders that are helping to make that possible. So, when you go and you work a secular job and you work hard for your family, but then you also give sacrificially to the Lord and to support the Lord's work out of that matters just as much as the guy that's actually going to the field. It takes all of that working together, and I appreciate so much you having that heart for missions. And then I like to end with this image. This was on the front of the lectern at one of the congregations that I showed you. It's Swahili and means, "Here am I, send me." Here am I, send me. That's the attitude every Christian, every person who loves God ought to have. That may mean He's sending you to the mission field. It may mean He's sending you to your neighbor. But having that attitude, I'm here. Use me, Lord, how you will use me. Just present yourself. I tell you, I promise, if you'll present yourself to the Lord to be used by Him, He will use you. He will use you. But there's not one person, not one that's been called by the Lord to sit by idly and watch everybody else work. Everybody can be used to do something and serve in some way. As long as you have lucidity of mind about you, you can be a prayer warrior, right? Something. So thank you so much for that. Now, maybe there's somebody here tonight that you haven't yet obeyed the gospel yourself. Maybe you haven't yet taken advantage of this tremendous opportunity that God has given you, and you're ready to change your life. You're ready to repent. You're ready to be baptized for the remission of your sins so the Lord would add you to His church. Now is a wonderful time. I assume this baptistry is prepared and ready for anybody who would love to take an opportunity and take advantage of that. Now is an opportunity. Or if you want to tap into that power of prayer we've been talking about, and you just need to ask your brethren for prayers, I'm certain this congregation will be very happy to pray for you. If you need to respond to the Lord's invitation, it is yours. Come forward and let your need be known while together we stand and sing.